Today, I've got another reaction video for you guys. This one is about Willis Reed.
Willis with a 26.8 average against the Lakers. And Willis is getting a tremendous standing ovation. So John Condon waits before continuing.
So, kind of similar to the last two videos that I did of Bob Cousy and Dolph Schayes. I'm going to react to Al Harrington talking with Gilbert Arenas and what they think about how Al Harrington would fare if he was to match up against Willis Reed. Let's hear what they have to say.
So we're going to continue this NBA 75 special chat that we got going on with a game that I made up called Whose Ass You Busted. Now the rules are simple. I'm going to give y'all a player. You tell me if you would bust their ass, if they would bust your ass, or if there would be a mutual ass busting. Your last guy, Willis Reed.
I'm a Knicks fan, so I have mutual respect for him.
Okay.
But I'd have bust Willis Reed's ass.
Okay. For sure.
Come on, bro. Anybody from, listen.
Come on, we just
Where
had
the
too
bread
much
at,
shit.
Willis Reed?
Come on, let's just be honest.
As former professionals, I can't totally fault them for like having high confidence, but a little bit of context here. Like Willis Reed is probably the greatest New York Knicks player of all time. There's interviews where people, if you poll people in New York who lived through that era and up to today, most of them would say Willis Reed is the greatest Knicks player that ever played. Al Harrington is not.
So Patrick Ewing Knicks couldn't mess with
No.
No?
No. They couldn't mess with the 6'9" or the 17 Knicks. Not with Willis Reed on them. Willis Reed came out there in one leg.
They built around Patrick Ewing. They got other players as long as Patrick Ewing, but to me, he was one of the greatest centers that I've ever seen in the league.
You like him over Willis Reed?
No.
No?
I'm old school, so
So this is where I'm like, well, let's just keep watching.
Look, we're just gonna do it like this. We're just gonna stop it. From the 80s down, don't even worry about it. All right? The skill level at that time really wasn't developed. Okay, so it's just like you sitting here trying to do all this. I ain't never got to worry about a crossover. Stop.
Yeah, running up the court with one leg and all that. Come on, man. Imagine playing man against with one leg.
All right, let's just go ahead. Stop.
Last guy, Gil, this is it.
Two things. Number one, Gil thinks that they don't know how to play back then. Because it's like from the 80s, as if there's like a magic seam in basketball. Like, there are no seams throughout NBA history. There are always players that bridge any number of generations. Guys that played in the 60s were playing against Michael Jordan. Some guys that played in the 60s were playing against Michael Jordan. Like, Kareem is one of them. Kareem was still great when Michael Jordan was great. Okay? So, this idea that before 1980 they didn't know how to play, that's ridiculous. Before 1980, I will say, the NBA doesn't like to show or share a whole lot of things. They don't really even talk about the 80s that much anymore. They've moved on. Now it's all about this generation versus Michael Jordan's generation. I think everything just fades with time. These guys don't really understand basketball that far back. I mean, he really thinks that they're not that good back then, but what he's really saying, whether he intends to or not, is that he doesn't understand basketball prior to 1980. Him personally. The other takeaway on that is Al Harrington is mocking Willis Reed for Willis Reed's famous Game 7 comeback at Madison Square Garden in New York, 1970.
I think we see Willis coming out. There he comes right now. 6'10" from Grambling. The captain of the Knicks, the most valuable player of the NBA.
Game 5, Willis Reed goes down with some sort of hip or quad injury, something that was severe enough damage that he was almost completely immobilized.
25-15 the score, 4:11 to go. Reed at the foul line, drives on Chamberlain, is knocked down, and might be hurt. He is. Reed is slow to get up.
I was thinking, well, there goes the championship. Willis was the backbone of the team, and without him, I didn't see any way that we could contain Chamberlain.
The Knicks were left with the sobering reality of facing the Lakers without Willis. Chamberlain shredded the Knicks for 45 points, sending them back to New York for the deciding 7th game in desperate need of another miracle.
He misses game 6. Wilt Chamberlain goes off for 45 points. Now, Wilt is never talked about. Wilt recently came off an injury on that. Wilt's not really the full Wilt that everybody's familiar with from prior to his own injury. Doesn't matter. Without Willis Reed in the lineup, Wilt goes off for 45 points and 27 rebounds, I think, in game 6, and is the difference maker that LA wins game 6. They go back to New York.
In the locker room, no one knew if Willis Reed would play or not. He was in the training room. The door was closed. Guys are getting dressed, saying, "Is Willis gone? Is he not gone?"
Here comes Willis, and the crowd is going wild. Willis passes the scorer's table. He takes the basketball. The Lakers have stopped, and they're just watching Willis go through his warm-ups.
And at that moment, I looked down at the Lakers, and they all stopped shooting. And as the roar got deafening, I remember looking at West, and looking at Chamberlain, I looked at Baylor, and they all just like their faces dropped. And at that moment, I felt, they won it. They're defeated. In my mind, they were defeated then.
And Al Harrington, sort of laughing at that, like, "Oh, I would take advantage of that." Easier said than done. Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and Wilt Chamberlain did not capitalize on that. That is one of the all-time pivotal moments, if not the all-time pivotal moment in New York Knicks basketball history. So for him to sort of understate that and act like he's going to do something about it when he never rose to the occasion at any point during his career in any kind of comparable way, I just think that's a dubious claim. Easier said than done. Easy to talk about it when you didn't live through it.
Close it down is picked up by Jerry West at the top of the post. Reed. Willis Reed. And Reed now is outside. There's his second shot. He is 2 for 2. Willis Reed.
He hits his first 2 shots. And that tells us all we can do this. And we did.
Willis would not score again. But he had rallied his teammates, and they would not let their valiant captain down.
Another thing I'll touch on with respect to Gil's perception that players prior to 1980 didn't know basketball. I've talked about this in both my prior videos, the Bob Cousy and the Dolph Schayes video, but I'll touch on this again, and we're going to go through it in depth later in this video. But players back then were playing a handcuffed version of basketball. There are some things that are the same. The size of the court is the same. The lane is, at this point, 16 feet. The baskets are 10 feet up. Other than that, there's a lot of things that change how everyone has to build their game. But one thing I would like to try to convey here is that these players who played back then, from role players all the way up to the superstars, they were masters of their craft.
Ball resting in the palm of the hand, with the fingertips on it. The wrist, the forearm, and the elbow are the most important parts as far as shooting is concerned.
The defensive player never knows when you're going to shoot. Notice how the arm is relatively straight and the elbow almost directly under the ball. If the arm is not relatively straight, chances are the shot won't be either. The wrist is cocked and the fingers on the ball, so the fingertips control the ball. You should shoot every shot the same way.
How do you margin of error?
Sure, because the defense is on its way down.
And you gotta look for the layups.
Went into him and bounced back, right?
Right, I just try to use my body and not use my arm or hand to push him away so I wouldn't get an offensive foul.
Because they use their hand, they get carried away, and they'll go into a player and push him and pop back. You're guarding him. Now you got the ball there. Now what do?
Well, then I, try to make my move, Ed. Started working this way, that, then go to the baseline.
You see, he found out, and he knows, from this position as a forward, he can go any way he wants. So your most important point is to lift your head up first, see what you're going to do, and then make the throw.
That's right.
Gave it a little shovel pass. Very simple. What's your objective when you're making a little simple play like that?
Well, to give the man a good pass.
Exactly.
The other thing is to hide that ball. Don't let this man behind me see what I'm going to do with it.
Now there's a little hook pass.
And the first thing I put this hand out. Now I'm ready to block a shot right now. I'm ready to take it.
No matter who's going to shoot it.
No matter who takes it right now, I'm ready for it.
Within what area?
Anywhere in here. I'm trying to eliminate the pass here. So what I'm going to do is get an angle and watch here.
It's very good. Now you see what happens here. Bill Russell knows that not only is he a great scorer and has great quickness and can go in for the layup, but he can fake the layup and pass off to Bill Russell's man. So as he said, he had this hand out to eliminate that, and still, you notice how nice and soft he blocks the shot? I want to do this again. Go ahead, do it fast, 90. Go faster. Now, hold it. All right, Calvin, let's see a few dexterity drills. Ridiculous. All right, now how does that relate if you're going to twirl the baton?
Well, I'm dribbling with my fingers here.
Watch this, watch this. He doesn't even have to watch anything. He's looking at the camera. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that control.
I've been playing ball since I was 7 or 8 years old. And after a while, you instinctively learn how to shoot.
Okay. He signaled for the ball. He felt that he couldn't get the ball where he wants. Now watch. See? Sometimes he bounces, sometimes he don't. Just move.
First variation would be thinking this way and going to the basket. Just a spin and going to the basket. Let's see if we can go the other way. Basically the same shot. Fake. And go right into the basket on the layup.
People think that just because he happens to be tall, he didn't spend all this time working. I know he did, because I followed his career for many years. He worked hours and hours and hours on shooting and developed a touch, but most important,
they really understood how to play the game that was in front of them. Just like today's players really understand how to play the game that is in front of them. I think it's wrong to try to act like the game just progressed, like players got better. That's what changed. That's what's different between now and 1980. It's more like players continually adapt to an ever-changing landscape of rules and regulations around them.
A lot of you guys are doing like this, facing him, and then you step. That's a travel. And unfortunately, it happens a lot of days in the ball. So
you get the ball, you do this, the travel.
Yeah.
So if you get the ball, wait, or even though you get it, quick first step and the ball on the dribble.
What about crossover steps? So say you're facing up again,
okay,
and you jab and go left.
Like this. No.
So anything where your foot leaves before the ball comes down.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot move the pivot foot no matter what before you dribble.
So if I want to go right, you got to get ball down.
I have a good example of Jim Barnett. He was sort of a role player back then. But just to show like how much thought and how much polish goes into their moves and some of the things that they observe in the game.
You want to catch the ball in an area where, what I call an A area, where you can take a shot without having to take a dribble.
Okay.
Because everything is predicated upon catching the ball.
Again, this is Jim Barnett. He's a contemporary of Willis Reed. He was a backcourt player back then.
Get to the rim on one dribble, efficiently on one dribble, maximum 2 dribbles. All these other dribbles just get you in trouble, more defense comes. You're up on me. As soon as I make this move, you've got to not only move to the side, but you're going to make a move backwards that way. You have to.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm going to be gone. So, all right? Now, you don't know which way I'm going to go. You don't know. You still don't know. See, I may be going that way.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, now,
I can't elevate anymore, but if you notice that, even at my age, I'm near the 3-point line. What happens, there's a rhythm to it. If you can get this on the film. There's a rhythm, and when I throw it, I'm going to run and get it, and I'm going to take a few steps. I'm going to pick it up off my right foot. I'm going to take a step with my left, so I have a natural 1.5 step to the basket. even from here.
Another key thing he just said there, 1.5 steps to the basket. What do we know about basketball today? You get a rhythm that's 1, 2, 3 to the basket. He's saying 1.5 steps. Why is he saying that? This is where I believe, someone like Gilbert Arenas' opinion is falsified. He thinks that these guys don't know how to play. He thinks the skill wasn't developed. No, the skill was extremely developed. The skill was extremely developed to a different set of rules. Imagine how different the game is going to look if this one rule alone was implemented in today's game. Players have to figure out how to get the ball after a gather to the rim within 1.5 steps, not 3. This should explain to a lot of people, and I know somebody's going to break down footage somewhere and be like, no, look at this player back then who did it in X number of steps. It's the exception, not the rule. The way refs were officiating games back then, you can see it. It's clear as day when you watch extended game tape from that era. It's a different game of basketball. It is really tight how it was called back then. All of this downhill play today, all of this stretch shooting today, all of these things, they go out the window when you take away a three-point line, when you only allow 1.5 steps after a gather. The amount of traveling, and then there's another thing that we'll get into later, charging calls. It's ridiculous how sensitive charging calls were back then. But this sort of, variance with how the game was interpreted is, it really needs to be talked about when anybody's trying to evaluate skill then versus skill today.
Here, I should be able, years ago, I could get all the way to the rim on that. It only works, by the way, against good defenders, which is pretty good if you're in the NBA, because they should be better defenders. If you're not a good defender, what'll happen is you're not going to go with my fake too much,
right?
Okay, and I might bounce the ball off your foot. That's happened before to me, even in the NBA, a few times. Maybe I try to rush it or whatever. But the key is, now you're guarding me, come just guard me any way you want, okay? I'm gonna step back here because you don't know what I'm gonna do and I don't either.
I thought you were going that way.
I know, don't guess, see?
Right.
I don't know. There's another way, ready?
Oh, you didn't do that.
So anyways, that's Jim Barnett, like in his 70s. Those moves, most people who are at least armchair experts, those moves are going to work against them. He's going to freeze defenders with that. Now, he's got to figure out, think of how tough his assignment is as a guard in the NBA back then. He's got to figure out how to freeze defenders in an era where you have to dribble palms down. You cannot touch the side of the ball. So he kind of explained how the incentive has changed. Some of this stuff still applies today, some of these concepts. Like, I like to implement today keeping dribbles to a minimum, but I see a whole bunch of guard players today who don't, and they're kind of effective, even though they don't implement that. The people's handle is so loose today because they can touch the side of the ball. They can hesitate with the ball at the apex of its dribble. All of these were violations when Jim Barnett or Willis Reed were playing. All of these were violations. So you had to play and kind of figure out how to be in triple threat like how Jim Barnett was explaining there. You had to learn how to freeze a defender before you started your dribble going left or right, which is why a lot of big players didn't even do it. It's also why a lot of players didn't really develop their offhand. Changing hands and pushing the ball side to side in a lateral way often got you in trouble with violations back then. And the game was called so tight, it's better to figure out a number of other ways to move the ball around, as a team, let alone as an individual back then. So it completely changes the incentives in a nuanced way. So much so that when people glance at a game from like 1970 versus glancing at a game, today, it's easy to see why somebody would make a snap judgment and say they suck back then. They don't know how to dribble. They don't know how to, because they're not trying these advanced moves today. But they're not trying these advanced moves today because they can't. So another thing I'd like to talk about is like the competition Willis Reed played against, because this comes back all the time. Like if let's say Wilt Chamberlain or Bill Russell, two greatest of all time candidates for different reasons. Well, who'd they play against? If you actually don't know, it's a great question. But if you're saying it like you don't think they played against anybody any good, oh man, you don't know what you're talking about. So we'll just take Willis Reed, for example. That is the most stacked Hall of Fame center era in NBA history. Period. End of discussion. It's not the 90s. It's not the 80s. It's not now. It's not any time in between. It's not when Shaq played. No, it's mid 60s to mid 70s. So Willis Reed, again, he only played 10 seasons. Total of 728 games, 650 regular season, 78 playoff games. He won 2 NBA championships. I'm only going to list like superstar centers. He did so playing against Bob McAdoo 7 times. Now, Bob McAdoo played center when he first started, and he was red hot when he came into the league. And Bob Lanier 11 times. Again, another red hot player when they came into the league. Now, 7 times and 11 times for these 2 players here, McAdoo and Lanier. Just for comparative sake, Jokic and Embiid only played each other 8 times. And Giannis and Embiid, or Giannis versus Jokic, they've played each other 16 times. So if we keep going down the list, he played against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar 21 times. So more times than Giannis has played Embiid or Giannis has played Jokic. And way more times than Jokic has played Embiid. So those are premier center matchups today. Willis Reed was going against Jabbar 21 times in just his short 10-year career. Elvin Hayes, 22 times. Elvin Hayes played center when he first started. Dave Cowens, 25 times. And now the numbers are really going to skyrocket. He played against Zelmo Beatty 39 times. And Walt Bellamy 39 times. Nate Thurmond. He played against Nate Thurmond 46 times. Bill Russell, a greatest of all time candidate. He played against Bill Russell 52 times. Wes Unseld. This was, and by the way, Wes Unseld was his marquee matchup. Wes Unseld and him were kind of the same ilk. They're undersized in height, but they're kind of built like football players, and they both played physical. But he played against Wes Unseld 56 times. And then, of course, Wilt Chamberlain. Willis Reed played against Wilt Chamberlain 72 times. He only played 10 seasons. It's almost like an entire season you have to dedicate to him just playing against Wilt Chamberlain. So, you know, anybody who wants to like be dismissive of that era, these are just the superstar centers. I'm not even talking about like, oh, he was an all-star 1 or 2 times. Like, no, these are Hall of Famers, superstar centers, like marquee matchups, all of these. That's 390 games just between those names. But Al Harrington's going to be a problem for him, right? Now, I keep mentioning the rules, and I leaned pretty hard on them in the prior 2 videos, but I think in this video I'm going to lean like really hard into it. This is going to be a great piece of reference material for anybody who's trying to explain basketball back then versus basketball today. We're going to show like what was allowed defensively back then, and then we're going to show what was not allowed offensively back then. We're going to juxtapose these 2 ideas. So first thing, let's look at a few clips. These are all from Willis Reed games that I was combing through as I was putting this project together. And some of this stuff's whistled a foul, but they're not whistled as like flagrant fouls or anything like that. Contact to the head, no, no flagrant fouls. Defensive enforcement was a concept in the game back then. Physical defense, such as here, getting your arm hooked. Oh, you know what? Oh, this was a charge. So this was a charge. So this was a charge on Dissinger. Now look at this. He had his arm hooked. First off, he's being hand checked. Being hand checked by Dave DeBusschere right there. Second off, he gets his arm hooked by Willis Reed right here. Now his shoulder barely brushes the hip of Dave DeBusschere. And he kind of flails. This would be like a classic today, like, hey, ref, where's the foul? No foul. No defensive foul. Offensive foul. Frazier, clubbed in the head. Okay, now, of course, he does get the free throws here. Not a flagrant, though. Clubbed in the head by both players. One from behind, Yeah, Bob Lanier and somebody else. Bob Lanier is like 280 pounds at this time, by the way. Don't want to get hit in the head by him. No stoppage of play, no foul. Hand check by Gus Johnson. Leads to an easy fast break. What is hand checking? Does it affect players? Well, Dave DeBuscher's trying to bring the ball up from half court. Dave DeBuscher's not normally their guard. He's not their best ball handler on the Knicks team. He's okay, but these are the situations where like hand checking can become a thing. Not everybody's going to be a great ball handler on your team. You get a guy like Gus Johnson, a really strong, really great defensive player, riding your hip. He's making Dave take a real wide turn here. I'm sure Dave DeBuscher does not want to take this wide of a turn, and then he's able to use his length, Gus Johnson here, and poke the ball with his other hand, because he's already got Dave DeBuscher in an uncomfortable position.
With 15 field goals, 32 points, 1 minute 15 seconds remaining of the ball game.
Picking
Bing brings it across,
hand check.
almost stolen by Barnett of the backcourt, but Bing
a lot of contact.
Gets it across the
falls into his
line,
legs.
drives the lane to the left, lays it up and in.
Back to his man guarding Willis Reed. Fires out, takes it back, lays it up. It is good. Beautiful move by James.
Look at Willis Reed. Follow Wilt to the hoop, leaning on him with his elbow. Not a foul. Just a basket. Not a foul. Look at that. You know, as a guard, it's a fundamental as a guard. Like, you want to go into the chest of a big defender waiting down low for you. You kind of want to go into their chest because it's harder for them to block your shot if they have to back up, right? You know, anybody who plays basketball kind of understands. You got to go into the chest of the defender.
We always talk about gang rebounding. You're going to need it. Damian Lee did well to make sure he got contact that time. Don't avoid it. Don't shy away from it. Make sure you get the contact and you try to concentrate.
Dave Bing, really athletic guard, backcourt guard back then. Good at shooting, good at driving, really quick, really explosive leaper. Does the right thing here, goes into the chest of Dave DeBuscher. But really, back then, you really want to eat up that space without actually making contact. You want to just get them backed up a little bit. I mean, Dave DeBuscher is in the air. He jumps with him. And it's considered a charge. And look at Dave Bing is trying to do everything he can to not use his offhand. Look at his offhand is way out there to the side. Today, that would be like, or in recent seasons, that would be like Blake Griffin with his arm into the neck of Dave DeBuscher, if that was like in recent eras. And it would be an and one. Nope, charge. But here's Walt Frazier. This is a great play. Great attack into the chest of the defender. He's trying to own that space, charging. It's a fine line between what's allowed when they try to get into the chest of the defender. They just want to make the defender back up. And they're hoping the defender's going to do something like forward contact into them, where it's going to reverse the call. It's a risk. It's a gamble that they take. And it's why a lot of downhill, explosive guard plays to the rim, it's why there's not a lot of highlights of that back then. It's tough to be a guard, even if you're an explosive and athletic one. It's actually going to work against you back then. You're going to jump into a bunch of players, you're going to get a bunch of charge calls.
Any point. Walt Frazier against Don Chaney. Frazier. Elbowed him. Foul called on Frazier. Take another look at it, see him shove him with his elbow. 13.5 point average, 9.5 rebounds. It's the first kick, gets his shot up. Offensive foul called against Traversi, using the elbow to send off the defender, his first personal.
Here, switch, and he got busted his mouth for his effort.
3-0 lead over Golden State. Destroyed them last night, 146-70. DeBuscher on a drive foul. DeBuscher offensive.
This is far and away the best defensive game the Celtics have had in this series.
Callens' move. Callens gets that ball low, and he wheels to go baseline. Ginelli beat him to position. He made a great play. Callens charged him. Ginelli got the ball. Callens instinctively reacted.
Loves the corner three. Railing that one there. So they double team Jeff Kareem. Here's the slithery Bones Highland. Looney went straight up. Him get all the way up on him. If he can blow by people, get into the paint, kick it back out.
Unseats him. This is Willis Reed unseating, attempting to unseat Wes Unseld. This is a concept of basketball that existed from the Shaq era and up especially, that did not exist in the 1960s. And there were a number of players who could have taken advantage of it. Wilt Chamberlain being one of them. Wes Unseld, Willis Reed, these powerful built players. I'm sure they all would have loved to get away with this kind of play. The bump to displace, and then the finish.
The power of Shaquille O'Neal. Watch Mutombo. It's almost like he lifts him off the floor. Your feet leave the floor. It's pretty difficult to jump. And Shaq.
Okay. Willis Reed, recognizing a defender has already got to his spot. This is another thing that I'll try to make a point on. Players had to be good at pulling up in a tight space because of the risk of charging. So Willis Reed kind of does a pick and roll here, catches it. Normally this would be a hard finish to the rim, but he gets kind of beat. And this defender, even if his feet aren't set, high risk for a charge. Willis Reed has to pull up to avoid the charge. I think he completes this play. He does. This is the kind of stuff, like how these guys needed to adjust. Pulling up in such a tight space. The best way I can equate or describe how they had to play back then was these guys were masters at operating in tight spaces with limited mobility. They can't rake the ball left to right. They can't do, they're not playing downhill really. Like they can't really play downhill. If they are playing downhill, it's like running into a minefield if there's a bunch of players down low. And there's always a bunch of players down low because there's no three-point line. So really, these guys are like knife fighters in a phone booth. Like they really got to learn how to do really close, tight maneuvers, and they really have to figure out a way to be effective offensive players. A lot of these players didn't shoot high percentage because they're at a distance where I showed a chart in my prior video. They're at a distance where shooting percentage even today is very low, let alone with such a crowded lane and with so little contact allowed if you're the offensive player. And they're not breakaway rims. There's no soft bounces on those rims. Those are solid rims, not breakaway rims. Ha! Where's the traveling? And again, this is not... Some of you are going to watch this video and say, these are bad calls. Well, they're bad calls every freaking game. And it just shows like this is how tight the game was called. By the way, they're not all bad calls. Those refs also understand what they're doing. Some of these calls they're going to get wrong, but it doesn't matter. It's the overall vibe. These players are playing a tight, disciplined game. It's very unlike the culture in the NBA today, where everything's about freeform and offense and freedom to do what you're going to do as an offensive player. It's all about freedom. Complete opposite mindset back then.
Circle Bryant inside it goes to Bellamy, drives the lane.
And I think herein lies the problem. People today are not looking at the game that closely, even at the professional level. They're not looking at the game that closely. A dribble will happen first, they won't call that. Or even if the dribble doesn't happen first, they won't call that. Okay, this is a big one. Okay, here we've got Dave Stoller dribbling the ball up the floor. He kind of loses it for a second. Kind of a weird thing, right? Think about this for a second. If he's playing today, what is he going to do? He's going to resume dribbling, and he's going to act like it didn't happen. He's going to just really regain composure, like, oh, we lost it for a second. Let me regain composure and keep dribbling. That's how the game is played today. Now, there are maybe some purists out there that are like, well, it's traveling all day long. Well, yeah, but they don't really call it today. I can't tell you how many countless times I've seen this in my own rec league, in pickup games. Somebody loses the ball. It's their own fault. It's an unforced error. They lose the ball dribbling. They're not in the right position. Their hand's not in the right position, something, and they just resume dribbling. Dave Stalwart, he's exposing the culture of this era. He instinctively does not want to touch the ball because he's conditioned to understand that this is a violation, because it would be a violation. This is lost in the modern game of basketball. I never see this called, ever. I've seen Steph Curry, I've seen LeBron, they dribble it off their own ankle, they do something funny, or they just miss the dribble, and then, they're looking for it for a second, they start their dribble again, and nobody bats an eye.
We're tied at 4 as Cheney works it at the top of the key for Boston. Take it in, we've got a foul before the shot, offensive foul. No, he turned it over. Turned it over, did he? Took it over and rolled it over, took the hand from the bottom, brought it over the top.
Well, today, my hand will be under the ball because you couldn't, you carried the ball all over the place today. But
He turned the ball over. He is called for fouling.
Gilmore, AVA looking to run every time. Here is Ralph Simpson in the game now in backcourt. He palmed the ball first time he got it, and the NBA gets it back.
Foul. To stop that impeded, I think that should be technical. But I do like what the league's doing with the rules and not calling some of the ones where you kind of dive into the guy and things like that.
Monte Morris missing there.
Okay, so we're going to look at a few games here. First one we're going to look at is just so you guys can get an idea of how Willis Reed plays throughout the course of a game and against a few different matchups defensively. First one here will be against Bill Russell. So this is 1969 NBA playoffs, Knicks versus Celtics. Obviously, the Knicks lose the series. The Celtics go on to win the championship in 1969. But this was a very good battle between Bill Russell and Willis Reed. Bill Russell was actually going at Willis Reed offensively, something that's not normally how Bill Russell plays, and that was to try to work him on that end or make Willis Reed work on the defensive end in an effort to get him to throw off his game, because Willis Reed was naturally a little bit better of a scorer than Bill Russell was. He was never in the league of like Kareem or Wilt, but he was generally a good, I guess you could say, an effective offensive player, but also he really looked up to Bill Russell and really tried to pattern his defense after Bill Russell to the best of his ability as well. So this is some clips of Willis Reed versus the Boston Celtics 1969 matching up against Bill Russell. Right there, good block on against Bill Russell. Pump fake, shot over Bill Russell. And dunks right over Bill Russell. So Willis Reed could take it to the rim hard when he wanted to. Another jump shot. He seemed to like that free throw line for jump shots. This they call traveling, very sensitive traveling rules back then. Gets fouled by Bill Russell on that. Aggressive defensively. Aggressive rebounder, gets fouled. Boxes out. So Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain actually didn't like to box out that often by comparison. Willis Reed looks like he's a little more active in boxing out. Another nice pick and roll. Great block shot. Another great recovery on defense and a block shot. Quick. He's very quick. You don't know if he's going to drive or if he's going to shoot. Good offensive rebound. Looks like they called a foul. Another nice dunk by Willis Reed. Next, we'll jump over to a matchup versus Kareem. Now, difference between Kareem and Bill Russell is Kareem is a lot taller than Bill Russell. Although Bill Russell is, if I had to guess, Bill Russell is probably as long as Kareem as far as his arm span goes, which led to his defensive ability or contributed to his defensive ability. Kareem was a little less focused on the defensive end, probably less mobile, even though young Kareem is extremely mobile. Probably still less mobile even than that final season of Bill Russell. Less mobile on the defensive end. A very tough player to have to play defense against. due to his array of shots around the basket. But this is how Willis Reed matches up against Kareem, a player much taller than him. Remember, Willis Reed is about 6'8" barefoot. Kareem is about 7 foot. Kareem is about 7'2" barefoot. I think newspaper archives reveal he was like 7'1" and 7/8. So Nears makes a little difference. He's 7'2" barefoot. That's close to Wembanyama's size. So let's get into watching this one. Pull up shot right away. He's going to want to make Kareem come out, as he tried to do against Wilt or Bill Russell as well. Nice drive. As soon as Kareem leans forward. A little bit of a step back. Legal the way he did it in that era. Good drop step inside. Another good drop step inside. He does that hook shot every once in a while in game tape. Very good at pump faking to send defenders flying, just like right there, and over 2 defenders right there. This is to show you can't play like Shaq back then. There is no running somebody over. Again, I cover this in the rule change section. Great block. Another jump shot. Kareem is actually trying to send those unsuccessfully. And then we'll do one more game here. We'll do the 1970 NBA All-Star game. So it might not be a great center battle. Okay, so he gets ahead of the pack. He was good at running the floor. Okay, using his off arm on the rebounding. Which, by the way, the off arm, using it while you're trying to rebound seems to be more okay in the eyes of the refs back then. Where they did not allow it as if you had possession of the ball. Fights for those rebounds. He's playing against Elvin Hayes here at center. So this is Elvin Hayes playing center in this All-Star game. Look at this, great pump fake. What a tough guard. Look at those pump fakes. Triple teamed, no problem. Look at all those pump fakes. I mean, you cannot predict when he's going to shoot, and he's got great touch. Sends that shit by Connie Hawkins. And runs the floor. Gets rewarded on the other end. And he wins MVP for the 1970 All-Star Game. Hopefully those clips were a little bit of an eye-opener for a lot of you who may have not really tried to dissect how basketball was played back then and why players would have had a certain type of repertoire of skills. Like Willis Reed, a couple of things that he's really good at. Really a quick player. He's one of the centers that played back then. He's going to have a lot of contrast to somebody like Wilt Chamberlain. I don't want to say he's one of the centers that played this way. Almost all of them played this way, other than Wilt and Jabbar and Bill Russell, where he plays more like a forward or a power forward, or what we would call maybe a stretch 5 today. Not a three-point range stretch 5, but he's shooting a lot of jumpers because he has to, because the guys he's playing against are like Wilt, Jabbar, and Bill Russell. It is very hard to score in that paint, as you could see by those rules alone, with how little contact you could get away with, etc. One of the most effective tools in Willis Reed's bag was having a really good jump shot, and he had really good timing, really quick hands, really quick footwork. When he took it to the rim and nobody was in his way, he took it to the rim hard. A number of clips of him like dunking over Kareem, dunking over Bill Russell, trying to dunk on Wilt. I'm sure he successfully dunked on Wilt a number of times. I only have a clip of him like making an effort, but it rims out. Probably the greatest Knick that ever played Knicks basketball. Best Knicks center that ever played Knicks basketball. You could argue Patrick Ewing, but Willis Reed crested the hill twice and was an outstanding center. By that alone, you got to put Ewing as a backup, because Willis Reed was the man when he did it. It's not like he was role player. Willis Reed was anchoring that team. And another thing I'll touch on, a natural leader. This is one thing that doesn't get talked about here when these comparisons are made. what kind of person is Willis Reed? Both on and off the court. A natural leader. So another thing that I usually take issue with is when players like Gilbert Arenas, J.J. Redick, or Al Harrington here, when they make criticisms about great players that played in the past, they're talking about players that were able to overcome incredible adversity. I mean, Willis Reed is playing against Wilt Chamberlain in the 2 times that he wins an NBA championship. Both times are against Wilt Chamberlain as the other center. And this is when Wilt was in his prime defensive years. He's playing against Wilt Chamberlain. He's going through Kareem to get there. He's going through Wes Unseld to get there. Through Nate Thurmond to get there. Willis Reed had a warrior mentality. Had to go up against those guys that many times and come out on top. If you aren't built like that now, you are not going to supersede somebody with that kind of mentality then.
In 6 All-Star games in as many years in the league, he's 6 for 6. And he's from Grambling, captain of the New York Knickerbockers. And boy, is he happy.
Willis has just received 200 cc of cortisone. Now, I've had cortisone myself, and I think we see Willis coming out.
There he comes right now. 6 feet 10 from Grambling. The captain of the Knicks, the most valuable player in the NBA. Out of the court. And Willis is receiving a standing ovation. Takes the ball from the foul line. He jumps and it hits the rim and bounces to the right. And now Willis will take part of a pregame warm-up. The cheers because Willis just did a couple. Now he takes some foul shots. This is the first. Looks over the backboard. Puts the second one.
Again, Chris, here he is. He's the big man. Willis Reed, named the most valuable player in the just concluded NBA championship series with the Knicks now #1. Willis, congratulations to you, and I'm sure it comes from all the viewers. I must talk to you first about the incredible ovation you got when you came out on the floor tonight.
I was very pleased with that. Everybody had been saying, are you going to play? Are you going to play? I felt like I was going to play. I didn't know how effective I was going to be. I just said, I hope I have a good ball game. I hope the team play well, and I hope we could win it. I'll do everything I could because I didn't know whether we'll be back here again next year. We're here this year. Let's win it this year.
Let's win it this year. You said on the plane as we flew back after Wednesday night's debacle, from your point of view, it might not come your way again, remember?
That's correct. You never know. I mean, with the great teams, with Al Cindor and all other great ball players and teams in this league, we don't know what will happen next year.
Big man, you know what you mean to your teammates? You know what Bradley said about you?
No, he doesn't.
He said, just seeing you come out on the floor, put those guys together. And he spoke magnificently, he really did, about you men have coalesced, how you have. And truly, again, our congratulations. You've offered, I think, the best that the human spirit can offer. Congratulations to you, too.
A Lion versus somebody who didn't quite make it to Lion status today. Like, they're not going to go back in time and be a Lion and dethrone one of the kings back then. They're not going to do it. And on what? Skills that don't apply to that game of basketball? You're likely to sit on the bench if you're not careful. You've got to play really tight. It would probably have to be the tightest games these people have ever played against for them to want to match up against somebody like that. Now again, to give somebody like Al Harrington a little bit of credit here, he's a pro. You got to have that mindset as a pro that you're going to beat anybody that you match up against. So I can't rip on him too hard. Same with Gilbert Arenas, same with J.J. Redick, but also just for the fans' sake, just to put all of this in context. Willis Reed, he's going to need to adapt to today's game. Everything is so wide open, and he's never taken advantage of stuff like that. So if Al Harrington is envisioning it's in his era, yeah, Willis Reed's going to need to make a bigger adjustment. That game is wide open. Al Harrington knows how to take advantage of that. However, you flip the script, it's going to be the other way around. That game is so tight, and that is Willis Reed's game. And if you just had a battle of the wills, it's Willis Reed all day long. I think he was a little bit overstepping his bounds there, making that comment and trying to poke fun at Willis Reed. But why don't you let me know what you guys think in the comments. And by the way, I put together a great highlight video of Willis Reed that's going to come right after this here. It takes me a lot of time to make these videos, so be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll put out as much content as I can deep dives on these players from the past.
25-15 the score, 4:11 to go. Reed at the foul line, drives on Chamberlain, is knocked down, and might be hurt. He is. Reed is hurt.
I'd have bust Willis Reed ass.
Okay. I think we see Willis coming out. There he comes right now. 6'10" from Grambling. The captain of the Knicks, the most valuable player in the NBA.
And he's running up the court with one leg and all that. Like, come on, man. Imagine playing man against with one leg.
Let's just go ahead. Hi, I'm Willis Reed of the New York Knickerbockers.
Willis was dominant, physical specimen. Boy, I'll tell you, and he didn't mind knocking anybody down.
I always thought of Willis as the enforcer because he was not only a big guy, strong guy, but he kind of controlled things as a player.
One of the most physical, aggressive players that I ever played against. Willis was tough, played hard, 6'10", and played every inch of it. Very, very tough player, good team player. Tough both offensively and defensively. The thing that Willis loved to do is when you get him on the free throw line beside him, you'd go for the rebound or whatever after free throw, and he'd take his elbow and he'd shove it right into your neck and drag you to the floor.
Willis, was from, I think, Bernice, Louisiana. Very strong physical player, prolific scorer, and he was the core of that New York Knicks team that won those 2 NBA championships.
Okay.
Come on, bro. Anybody from, listen.
Come on, we just
where
had
the
too
bread
much
at,
shit.
Willis Reed? Come on, let's just be honest. Look, we're just gonna do it like this. We're just gonna stop it. From the 80s down, don't even worry about it. Right? The skill level at that time really wasn't developed. Okay.
So there are many moves that a center can use. Number one is just a turnaround jumper. The ball in here, a turnaround jumper. All I do is take the ball, turn, jump, and shoot. That time I turn to the left. This time I'll take the same receded path, take the ball, turn right, jump, and shoot. Notice to follow through the eyes with the arms and the eyes concentrated on the basket. The first variation would be thinking this way, going to the basket. Just spin and go into the basket. Let's see if we can go the other way. Basically the same shot. Take, go right into the basket on the layup.
8:35 to go third quarter. Reed. Need the score, 5:43 to go. Frazier got the ball, overhand pass to Reed, low post, turns on Chamberlain, puts it up on the rim, it is in.
Lead 25-22. Give it to Reed. Willis is underneath. Collins.
Havlicek, Willis Reed guarded by Baylor. Monroe. That's Bradley. Back to Reed. Reed outside. Got him, shooting. Boozer takes him. Reed's inside against Al Center. Denver almost came across.
Willis Reed.
Willis Reed. Triple team. Well, he is fluid motion.
How did the pros differ from life at Grambling?
Well, the one thing you got to remember, and I remembered, is that you're going to be playing against veteran guys. You're going to play against guys. Some guys have as much as 10 years of NBA experience and has played those many games and stuff. So the physicality of the game in terms of stamina and pure physical strength of the men you're playing against was going to be a lot different. That was the toughest part of it. You really had to make sure you got your rest.
And Willis Reed. Frazier saves it under to his teammate Reed. Hayes defensively. Grabbed in there by Mamaker. Now to Reed. Reed fires.
I used to walk to the center circle and say, "Good evening, Mr. Chamberlain." Same thing with Bill Russell. I mean, those were two of my biggest opponents. I mean, they were great players. Chamberlain had already averaged 50 points for a whole season, and Russell had won all those championships. And so it was a lot different. I mean, it was things for me to learn, you know. It was things for me to watch how well the other veteran NBA players were playing and how well they were doing.
By Ben Arsdale. Up court it goes to Russell. To Reed ahead of the field. Dunks it.
Willis Reed. Taken by Oscar Robertson. John Havlicek, a lead pass to Reed. And the East lead.
Starting out at the old Madison Square Garden uptown, it had a real soft floor, and it had some dead spots on it. And so you were better off passing the ball as opposed to dribbling, because sometimes you would dribble the ball and it just wouldn't come back up because it had dead spots on it.
Will take over in the backcourt. The Knicks go with Frazier and Barnett in the backcourt. Bellamy, Reed, and Russell up front. Barnett has it along the right side. At the high post to Reed. Willis back outside to Bellamy, to the cutting Barnett. Lays it up and in. Willis Reed's favorite shot.
Willis. The 8th, 1970. Both teams are out, doing pregame warm-ups. And when Willis came out of the locker room, dragging his leg, that had to be one of the loudest noise I've ever heard. I've been in a lot of crazy games, not just in the Garden, but just in general. Yankee Stadium, Super Bowl.
Back to 1970, when some of our older generation fans may recall when Willis Reed was not supposed to play in the 1970 seventh game finals against the Lakers, and at the last moment walked onto the Garden court and then hit two jump shots, played maybe 22 minutes, and the Knicks were inspired to beat the Lakers. That was the loudest crowd I have ever heard when he walked out from right under our broadcast booth.
And the big question tonight is, what is the status of Willis Reed? The Knicks and Lakers are warming up down on the court. The Knicks to our left and the Lakers to our right. Everybody in the house looking for Willis Reed. Willis is not taking part in the warm-up.
First quarter, Willis Reed, 17 feet. Barnett. Reed over Alcindor. Willis Reed, 14 feet. Tried to tip it. Reardon to Reed. Lou couldn't get it.
But now the crowd rising. Here comes Willis Reed. Reed making his way from the dressing room area out of the court. And Willis is receiving a standing ovation. Takes the ball from the foul line. He jumps and it hits the rim and bounces to the right. And now Willis will take part of the pregame warm-up. The cheers because Willis just hit a couple. Now he takes some foul shots. This is the first. Looks over the backboard, puts the second one in. And the crowd roars. And this will continue right through the pregame warm-up.
Reed. Mismatch against McLaughlin. He's got two more. Bradley from the top of the key. Dandridge and Reed. It is Reed, and he gets his basket.
Up again and misses this time. Rebound by Nelson, but he dropped it. Picked off by Reed, out to Meminger, to Frazier, Havlicek.
Cross court, head of the foul circle, drives on Comides, goes down the lane, lays it off, blocked by Reed.
Oscar Robertson looks into Lou, gives instead to Dandridge, and Dandridge has the shot blocked by Reed. And to Baylor. And Willis Reed.
Willis Reed. Willis with a 26.8 average against the Lakers. And Willis is getting a tremendous standing ovation. So John Condon waits before continuing with the introduction as the crowd continues to roar for Willis Reed. Frazier got it by West, left side of the lane, outside Reed, jump from 20. 6-2, Lakers nothing. Here's West. Barnett to Reed on the forecourt, right side from 20, jump. Yes.
You know, he would rather die than miss this game tonight. You know, that's just the type of thing it was.